back to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. This is Juliette Hahn, my co-host Brent Sopel, and I'm giggly.
I got nothing to say right now.
I am giggly. I'll just say I am going on weeks with not a lot of sleep. And so I have that mindset. But the reason why I'm giggly is because I was like, ooh, I want to do this. Ooh, I want to do that. And you were like, can you just hit record?
Yeah, because someone's going to listen to you for 20 minutes. Then like, oh, we should hit record.
Okay. So there was a couple things that I wanted to talk to. One about how brains work without sleep. And the other is about instructions. And we've talked about instructions before. But there's been a couple of different posts going around, and I thought it was really interesting because you and I both have said we read like one or two things and then we go and figure it out. We don't read the rest, and usually we mess up somewhere in between, but then we figure it out.
Oh, but obviously you moved in the house, the last couple of weeks, cabinets and putting this together and Ring doorbell and all these things, and I look at the instructions, and then I got to figure it out myself. I got to figure out what it means. I can, I look at it. I got to get it, lay it all out, and visually see what it, it is. On the cabinets on the wall or the Ring doorbell. I'd go back and forth, 25 different times till I figured out what it meant, and I couldn't just read the instructions and knew exactly what was going on. I had to go out there. All right, see what this is. All the screws out there, and the Ring doorbell. I'm like, oh, I figured out. Elizabeth, of course you did, but it's not traditional. How you open a box and here's the instructions. That's not it's not how we do it. So it's funny you said that because that's exactly what it was like. Last week it was cabinets. I had them up in certain places. I had to figure out in my head how I'm doing it and what it meant to go up there, or what was going to be my process, to get there, and not just, step one, you go and do this. I don't know what that means. Step two, I don't know what that, the shower door. So everything. It's not, it's not traditional.
No. And I know that you were doing that all last week. And I was like, I'm not going to, because I had like so many questions for you, but I was like, that's really not helpful.
That's the hard part. Everybody's like, so I hung all these cabinets by myself. It's like, no, you didn't ask for help. Well, that's a hard part is, asking for help. Sometimes it's more a hindrance than a help.
100%.
Because we can't get it out of, and they're not meaning to be a hindrance at all. They're trying to help too. Obviously me doing my stuff by myself, it's more the being let down. I'm just going to do it myself, mentality now at this point in time in my life. But, Vince is like, oh, you didn't call him help. But no, it's not so much, we don't want to, but sometimes it's harder. It makes it harder because now we're trying to put something up or put something together and we're asking for help. They're not, I understand, then it just ends up being, kind of headbutt and takes even longer and sometimes even a lot more frustrating than it could have been.
A billion %. And that resonates so much because I've throughout the years putting things together, and I've always enjoyed it. Even like when I was younger, my mom would always, anything that needed to be put together, she'd be like, you do it. But I would do it in a very different, as you said, non-traditional way. And if someone tried to come in and be like, well, no, you need to do this step, it would completely throw me off because in my head, I have how I have to do it. And a lot of times it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's a little different. And as you're doing it, sometimes you're like, fuck, if one thing gets messed up, which usually that happens, I usually mess up one thing and then I have to undo it, but then I know how to do the next one, right? If there's 1, 2, or 3 things, it's like, okay, the first one is usually like a little messed up. And then I don't even look at the instructions. I will look at the picture. Yeah. And that's how I do it. I don't read
the instructions. Everything's picture. And it's funny, what is it? Saturday when I golfed, at that event, and I was with Jim Coyne and from the plumbers, and another guy that was there. He sells insurance, so they sell like 65% of the insurance to the farmers here in Illinois, and big money, big guy, and been doing it 30 some years. And we're talking about obviously foundation and dyslexia. He's like, holy shit. He said, I've been doing this for 30 years. And I don't know what company, he works for, obviously a big company. He goes, not once ever has anybody ever spoke to me about doing something or learning differently.
Wow.
Obviously it was a long golf. It ended up being a big event. So it was like 6 hours, and I, obviously talked the whole time. And he goes, I can consider myself a, smart guy, educated guy. He goes, now I feel dumb. I've never, ever heard this. And he goes, like, when I'm training people and, I got 500-600 guys working underneath me, I tell them, this is how you do it. This is how I do it. And I said, I just use an example, and it's kind of everything we're talking about right now is, what about an email? Needing it in bulletproof rather than long paragraphs. Mm-hmm. He looked at me again, guys, 6 years old. He's like, I've never, ever, ever heard somebody mention what you just did. And I feel terrible.
Right.
My way, and he's like, we can talk more about it. I said, it's the love languages. It's, instructions. We get to our end game the same way, right? But we don't go the same way. And now we're judged, how we get there.
And yep. And that's why traditional school and these different styles of learning that we always are talking about is because, like, traditional school teaches you A, B, C, D, and we need to see the bigger picture of things to make sense of it. And if there's something, I remember like science or math, one of them that I really struggled in. And I was like, I need to and it was so frustrating because I couldn't explain why I wasn't getting it. But then it's just like, you're just pushed through, right? So you never get those steps. But if I can visualize something, I am like really smart. Like, and actually will be like, I can explain it. And the people are like, oh, wait, what? How do you, like, that's so crazy that you see it that way.
He's a prime example of, he's big in his company. He's a teacher, right? He had and I say this all the time, they don't even know there's another way to think, right? I said, work smarter rather than harder. And, people, he's like, I just can't believe I've spent 30 years or something and I've never heard this. So that's teachers right there, right? Mm-hmm. What you just said. And I was telling him, and the crazy part is he used to have a speech impediment. So he was talking about reading in class where you have to count the sentences, right? Paragraphs when it's coming to him. And he kind of had to, he said he, had to time it when they're done and he can start reading right away. It was kind of a gap, no gap, just right into it. And then we talked about the anxiety. He goes, it's funny. He goes, I've never talked about it. But I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, he goes, I've never talked about it because nobody had ever understood what came with that. The anxiety that comes with it.
You got him thinking. You got him thinking even today.
He's fat Irish redhead. So we, having fun out there. But, he was thinking.
He's still thinking. He's still thinking, being like, holy shit.
Right. And that's obviously, you talk about him, successful. How much more successful could that company be? Can his employees be? My brother-in-law, he's taken his test to be, I don't know, what is it, Elizabeth? Like a certified financial planner, 7-hour test, 45 questions, like a break, 45 break, 45 questions. I'm like, what the fuck? And also, we talk with Jim Coyne, he's got guys that are amazing in the field, but can't pass the test portion.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no, it's him. It's those people are what are running organizations that look, you know, that just don't know what to do, right? You know, here in Chicago, teachers union, that bullshit. But, you know, they just, I think, laid off, you know, 400 and something people. Like 300 of them are special ed teachers and, you know, teacher assistants. So there are, you know, we're already upside down in that ratio, but then who do you go get rid of? You know, that all the kids that need that help, you just got rid of all those teachers. So that's your solution, right? Is get rid of, right? Mm-hmm. But it comes down to no understanding. The wrong people are running it. And talking to these guys, you know, you can see them like, oh man, I never thought about it that way. Never thought about that way. And interesting. They had no clue what I was saying, you know, speaking to them, they laughed when I said, am I speaking to a Canadian or American? Am I talking miles an hour, kilometers, you know? But that's what's going on in the world. That's what's going on in the workplace. So he's writing this 7-hour test. I was asking questions about it. Can you bring pen and paper? You can't. Because they don't want to steal answers. So people take them home, give them out. You can have a whiteboard to write on, but then they hand the whiteboard back. At least, you know, there's some, but there's, you know, it's just so many things that can be tweaked. I mean, you know, administrating tests a different way. I talked to Jim about that. You know, we'll talk more about that. But, you know, working, I got IKEA coming here right away. You know, those instructions, they're all in Swedish. Swedish meatballs are good though. But it's, yeah, and all the pride bullshit to her. That's IKEA.
What IKEA? Oh, I was like, wait, where are we going?
It's just, you know, and it's pissed me off. Hey, what about us? You know, and these guys, you know, that I was with, they're like, I had no idea it was so prevalent. I had no idea the numbers. You know, like they were just like, what? Didn't. You know.
But the other thing, though, that, you know, it comes down to the understanding. I mean, if someone's listening to all of we bring it up, I mean, how many times? And I'm sure is going to click for people more times as they listen, because they're like, oh, this is what they're talking about, the understanding. So understanding ourselves as we're doing the instructions, right? Like as we're putting things together, you have to understand how you learn to be able to do that. And that's a hard thing, you know, if you think about that. Then the other thing is that you brought up that I wanted to touch on is the company, that you're like, how much more successful could they be if you understood? Not only that, but think about if you have someone that you're working for that understands you or is trying to understand you, right? Like they're not going to understand 100%, but like trying to understand you and trying to make your job easier or make you feel okay. Think about the loyalty you have to that person then it's like, you know what? I believe in this company because I believe I'm being seen and heard. I'm seen. And so, right. So that doesn't only strengthen a company from within, but it also makes loyal people. It makes loyal people that are going to want to work harder for you because you see and hear them. And you're like, I understand that you can't pass this test. And I understand that has to be frustrating. You're so good here. But it's those things that people, again, everyone's in their systems. This is how it has to be. You have to go A, B, C, D. No, it's not that way. And not everything has to be. The world would be so much better if we can think outside the lines and think outside the box.
You know, and for us, I think the company would be even better in a way that they don't even understand, because when we'll feel seen and heard, we tell everybody, we shout from the rooftops.
Oh, totally.
Right? Now, a normal person, they don't know what that means, being seen and heard to the degree we do. So they go to work, they do their thing, like, you know, come home, you know, like, you know, Dan's not one of them, right? Go to work, you know, he do it, you know, way he could do it, right? Different than us, right? So he's not shouting that he works at this company, you know, the way we would talk about being seen and heard.
Yep.
Yo, company XYZ. Oh my God, this has been so great. They've been, they would throw that into every single conversation everywhere. Grocery store, at the Christmas, at a party, we would have that broadcasted in a way that, the other people wouldn't, right? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't talk. It's a job to them.
Right.
It would, the community would that it build the, so one, obviously we get our job done, right? Loyalty. Mm-hmm. That's all you want. You never want turnover, right? Retraining, money, everything that goes in it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have, you wouldn't have it. It'd be a recruitment within.
And this is like one of the things back in the day, I was working on a project and we almost launched it and we didn't, but it was literally for HR people. It was when I was doing my own thing, for my own business. And it was training companies on how to hire the right person, because what people do is they just hire. It's like, okay. And it's because of the interview process, right? You're not getting through the interview process. You're not getting the person. You're basically getting someone that's like, okay, how do I interview for this company? They look it up on Google or they talk to people. They give you the answers that you want. And then you're like, okay, on paper, they look the best. But then they get into the workforce, they get into your company. And this is why there's so much turnover. There's so much high turnover in companies. And they've talked about how it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Well,
and it's
AI reads everything now. So your resume goes in if AI doesn't catch it. Like, so AI is going to catch mine. And this guy's a retard and not not go to the second step, right? So we're even less of a chance of getting to that interview process now than what we were back then.
Right. And so there's so many levels to it that are going to make a company more efficient. You're going to make more money. The stress is going to be way down. People are going to be healthier. They're going to want to show up and they're going to want to produce for your company. And it's almost going to be like they're proud to be a part of it, as you just said. I mean, I'm working for a company, right? That now it's a little different because I know, obviously know one of the co-founders. But if it was a different situation, when you can be yourself in a position and you don't have to hide and worry about like, oh my God, I can't do this or whatever, it is such a game changer. And I look back when I was in my 20s before I had kids, and I look back and think about it and think I had fun, but I also drank a shit ton because half of the time I was like, okay, how is someone going to, I mean, as the listeners know, I would get jobs that I was not qualified for because I was a really good interviewer. And then I would get into the position and be like, okay, now I have to figure it out. And then by the time I would figure it out, it would be like, okay, I had to do so much work to be able to have that front up and then find the people that could help me do certain things. And this wasn't in every position, but a lot. And it's a really stressful thing. So then, at the end of the night, I'm going to go to the bar and fucking tie one on because it's like,
interview process for us is our strength, talking.
Yeah. Oh, I could interview for everything.
And again, it's these same group of guys who's, a 6-hour golf round because of the tournament was so big. And we had a lot of conversations like, well, shit, I would have never thought about, they said, I don't know how many times as usual, everybody always says it, it's never would have thought of that, that plays right to our strengths, right? Speaking. Now the next part of doing the job, whatever that next step is, it's, what's your strengths? And when I was telling him, I'm like, if you could learn just the email process, use that as an example, sending an email bulletproof where they get it in 10 minutes rather than, 50 minutes.
Right. Because it takes us longer to read it.
Take that through a week. How many extra hours that is, minutes, how many days, it adds up quickly.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you. So last week when you were doing all of the instruction stuff, were you more tired at the end of the day? Because you were using your brain you were also doing physical stuff, but but did you have like a different tired?
No, it's because you weren't really reading.
Right.
We're using the brain the way our brain succeeds.
Okay.
Right.
I love that.
So it's, it's like handing me a a novel and say, yeah, okay, now you got to read this and then do no.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. No, I
so
love
it wasn't. Yes, did it take longer than for sure? I had to just put it out there and just kind of piece it together my own. I end up going kind of just drifting in my own little world because I'm trying to put it together.
Yeah. Right. And then if you get interrupted,
well, it's funny. Elizabeth actually said this yesterday. ADHD and I was talking to them about this. It's hard. It's not a doing problem. It's a getting going problem.
mm-hmm.
So, with her, she's working, right? Then I leave, and the fucking dog is an asshole and interrupting how many times? So how many times she has to start and stop, start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. She's not used to it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get back on. I'm in the mode, I'm working. I get interrupted by somebody asking me something, somebody calling me, something in between. They don't understand what that means for us to get back going.
Yeah. 100%. And it's really interesting being a mom because that was one of the things that I had to work on really, really hard, especially when I started my own business and the kids were still young, is to take a breath and not get frustrated because the second I'm taken off, right? It, as you said, it takes time to get your brain back. But as you get more accustomed to it, it does become a little bit easier. Not all, but like one of the things, like, if the kids need, oh wait, I'm like Penelope, I just got finished work, right? If I was on a call and I could, like when I was on my own business, okay, I'm in the middle of something, wait, let me pause. I can go run and get her. I got really good at it, but that was after years of being like, okay, I have to shift back and do it. Also, it's something I love. And this is what is so important. It's something that I love, that I like excited to do. So getting myself taken off of something that I don't love is very fucking different.
Well, and those are two different things. Getting interrupted, to go and physically do something, but it's the on the computer, numbers, right?
Yeah,
doing those things, and then getting interrupted when you're in the middle of that to go and so to fit, physically, right? Yeah. So it's those are the things that people have no clue about. No,
or like in the middle of an email. Like I can't tell you how many times I would get interrupted in the middle of emails, but I would be like, okay, I have to pause because I gotta, they need to be picked up. And so it's either you stop and finish doing it, but then it's on your mind. It's like, well, wait. And then my mind, right? It's taken off, especially now with cell phones and all the ways that you can be interrupted. It's not just back in the day where it was like someone popped in. But I do, it's something that I love, that you were able to talk and someone at a company is able to see what we talk about. And those are the things why
he was
like so important that you go. Yeah.
It was, and the conversation, it was just me talking, as I always talk about the foundation. It wasn't directed at him. I was just, telling him, all this kind of stuff. And then he came up to me and said that, I'm kind of dumbfounded right now. I was like, I love that. I'm like, my position. I didn't even know what he did, so I had to ask him, what he did. And it was, nobody's ever, it's been 30 years.
And how many people have wanted to maybe talk to him about it? What do you think about like?
Yeah, for sure. Because you take, wherever you are, you want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So over 30 years, it's come across a lot of us, right?
Yeah. Especially what he's doing.
Right. It wasn't comfortable enough to share it. So that's that piece that's still there, right? So that there weren't, if you're able to be, comfortable in your position, that's part of the loving what you do. If you can wrap that all in there. But he was just like, he came up to me. He's like, after 30 years, I've never heard anything like this. I'm like, where I work, I'm like, oh, what do you do? I train all these guys. I tell them, this is how you do it. This is how you have to do it. I'm like, well, that's how you do it.
Right.
But he couldn't, he had no concept of doing it any other way.
I love that so much because I just, that he is woken up every day. Now, the next time he goes trains, you're going to be in his head.
Oh,
of like,
I was in his head by the end of it. Well, because again, he was the one with the stutter, and reading in front of class. Like,
yeah.
Like and he said to me, I've never talked about it because I knew nobody understood what the anxiety come with it. I said, fuck, my mental health, my anxiety that leaving and, we're talking about all these things. I'm like, this is all stems right from that.
Yeah. I love that you were able to have that conversation. That's why it's so important when you do those kind of events. It's great.
Yeah. IKEA's here. All the shelving for a closet. Oh boy.
Nice. Is that what you're doing for the rest of the day?
No, they're coming Thursday to put it all together. But
that's great.
Deliver all shit ton of boxes.
Right. So and it's happening right now. The shadows.
Right now. So guess what? We're going to cut this short.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect. And we'll talk about sleep one of the other times, but this was perfect. So you guys know what to do, like, rate, review, and share, because you don't know who needs to hear this. You don't know what companies out there like, shit, I haven't done that. I need to do that. You don't know who needs to hear this. So we will see you for another episode of Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed.